you. This slide I see because it refers to the programs that are for accreditation. As you can see there, it refers to the previous one, but it's got this year as well, the BSTech SPO 3P and the diploma in engineering. So for yours, we are here at this current moment. Okay, I just wanted to go through what this says is that accreditation may not be granted unless a site visit has taken place. We all know about that. So, but I want to go to this one where it says in principle obligation to provide evidence. So accreditation is about evidence. On us to provide evidence that the criteria are satisfied, the rest of the provider must apply E12P. It's supposed to say E13P because you need E12P to fill in E13P. Self-study and care cost information, specified cost and material during the visit, supplementary information requested before and during the visit. So information relevant to criteria will not be provided. The team may report that the compliance of the program with the criteria could not be verified. The program may then be treated as deficient period for a limited period with the revisit. If pre-visit documentation has major shortcomings, the visit may be cancelled. So it's very, very important to comply with E13P requirements. An on-site visit is always required to obtain accreditation, professional accreditation. Documentation must be prepared by the university. No documentation of patient information, no visit, and no visit, no accreditation. The program must have produced graduates to be considered for accreditation, that's regular. Have students who have earned 50% of the credits to be considered for provisional accreditation, and that's where you are as VUT. Let's have a look at this. Exercise submission to ECSA 6 weeks and 1 day before the visit on a program contains a self-study but not the prescribed appendix 1. Separate volume of information on each course. The education manager at ECSA as the head of the department when the information can be expected as the head of the department at the university. The answer from the visit, it is very bulky and will be available at the visit. What should happen next? So what? It's a very nice one, meaning that you have not complied with E13P. In E13P, you see there are sections that needs to be filled in. And information can be submitted either electronically or in any manner. So the reason that it is very bulky is not any. Remember, the submission that is given will be proven by that part with the subject file and labs that are on site. But information that is submitted should also give an indication already to the team if the program is going to make it or not. And when they come to the site, it's just to verify what has been submitted. Okay, another one. The manager informs the head of department that the appendix 1 volume must be submitted as soon as possible and alerts the leader of the program and the leader of the visit. The letter from the head of department who is unavailable, department administrator says, we are putting the finishing touches to an electronic version and expect to get it in a few days. Or let's say that the reason for non-submission is non-cooperation by service departments and that such information does not exist in some department or even some courses in the department. What should the team and visit leaders do in scenarios A, document received and document not received in few days, and in scenarios B? Remember, we've got 6 weeks to submit before, so that has lapsed as well. So hence, it's very, very important to always comply with the time of submission beforehand. All of these reasons do not stand. Is it clear to everyone?
Sorry.
Yes, sir.
Which kind of file or document must be submitted 6 weeks before?
E13P. Self-study report. There's your reflection as the institution. Okay?
And generally, that one is prepared by the head of department. So individuals, academic, very often don't even know that is happening. But the head of department is fully responsible to make sure that that evaluation report is done. Okay. With information from the academics. So because they want information from the module framework or module files, then they will have to be provided by the various academics. So that's where their participation is eventually
Thanks, Prof. This one is just about the accreditation cycle, which I think that you are all familiar with. It's not maybe time to get, you can definitely do that. about interim visit, interim report, and final visit after that. But for now, we are more worried about that provisional accreditation. Limited cycle decisions, as you can see, they are in E10P, as has been reviewed, and we also have this very confusing slide about what comes when, with a regular visit. So all of these, D1 and D8, and all of these are given in the E10P report, whereby they explain when what happened, what will happen, and when until you get the final visit, or you get a notice to terminate, and so on and so on. But for now, as you can see, let's not worry about the other things that we are worrying about the provisional that is coming to get it through. After that is done, is then that we start with the regular visit to get to others. Simply, regular visit, interim if there are problems, and then interim report submitted. If there are still challenges, then we notice to terminate the fund. If all goes well from there, as you can see, the next regular visit. But those are things that have been built into the system. Limited decisions, as they are given, are in connection with that one. I can simply say that after now, in the midway, there will still be another accreditation once the first cohort is to the system to check that did they achieve the graduate achievements that were promised by the institution. So let me just go over and just interim visit or interim report. They are not applicable material change to the accreditation. Policy says practices may be reviewed if major changes are made to the program during the period of accreditation. Now, the question major would be something that, as we said, is not departmental. It also goes to Senate. So Senate will have given the information condition of accreditation, and this is expected to notify ECSA of such changes. ECSA can act on information received at the visit. It can act on that. And this is expected to provide ECSA with information that may request. The department embarking on extensive restructuring, we spoke about the extensive open accreditation programs to inform ECSA of its intentions, as we touch base on this area thoroughly. This is the policy on evaluation process. Accreditation covers the following sections on the program: provisional evaluation, regular, extensively divided degree programs. Currently, academic degree programs, not existing non-academic programs, constant visit, evaluation based. So if you read there, you'll get more information in the E10 under section 5. Following changing curriculum, policy was provided permission to extensively structure the program to advise ECSA, and all will be followed as such. As you can see, section 6.617 asks for such. But at the moment, that is not applicable to us. Those is still a new problem, but the information is there. This is the composition of the accreditation team, of which I don't think we have to worry much about. We are more worried about the accreditation of the program. So that is the team that will be coming to see normally 4, not less than 3 team leader registered capacity members, research and so on. Teams for related programs as well. Let's not worry much about that. Appointment of the team that is done by ECSA. This is leader responsibilities, team leader, team member duties as well, like observers of the visits. The function of the education committee, as we said, is the final arbiter, or the final decision maker. Very critical confidentiality and transparency. ECSA will not divulge details of investigation, documentation, correspondence, and discussions between ECSA, the present team, and investor concerned with the approval of the investor. ECSA's process has features to ensure transparency to provide appraised aid and relevant staff, all concerns and deficiencies, always triangulate between information sources and concerns and deficiencies. Use the criteria as reference and the us to leave personal views at home. As we said, it's not about how you do it somewhere or to set the scores, it's about how the institution is doing it. As I look at this, in the course of the accreditation visit, staff interviews, the upset member of the staff says that he has been responsible for finance and costs, and that this is to be outsourced to industry. He's not very forthcoming about what this means. The head apologizes for not including this change in the documentation because it's only starting next year. The head explained that because the branch has relatively few students and the department enjoys a close relationship with industry, finance students will be attached to the cooperative industry and work on a desired problem arising in that firm. They have looked at potential topics and they seem suitable. What questions should the team ask? So this is more towards the team, but I'm synthesizing you that if they find something like this, how should they explain this? The program has been, it's a finally design program, it's been removed from the institution, it's given to the industry. but oh, they forgot to inform the institution. But anyway, you should read that next year. It's not going to happen. So first thing is that to inform the engineering council that it has been changed, it's no longer offered on campus. Secondly, all of those things that would have been done by the institution. First will be those employers in the industry, are they suitable to offer anything that is academic, although it's a design subject? It's the institution's prerogative to prove that as well to the institution. Professor will know, we had a lecturer who they used to say it's not ECSA registered. We had to part, I remember Mr. Diaka, to prove that he can do experiential learning, visit and so on. Anyway, beyond reasonable doubt, his registration to ECSA to prove this. So it's upon the institution to prove that. What is also interesting is that in academia, there's no college that produces lecturers. It's by virtue of experience that we get this, unlike teachers whereby they put a teacher's diploma to prove that they are teachers. So it's all about evidence and to prove that some things that you are doing are relating to the program as they are and the result of the student. Section 4 is about accreditation process definition. Quality document what you do and what you're not supposed to do. That is 11A, 11P. Let's say it's a defined step-by-step process. Who does what and when and for what for the various types of evaluations. The tables that are given there: regular visit activities, table 2, terrain visit, table 3, report, terrain report, table 4, regular post-visit activities, evaluation of by the terrain report post-evaluation, table 6, interpretation, education decision-making, education committee, post-education decision-making, initial simplified initial and desktop evaluation, and let's call it appendix, their performance as well. This is just to give the timelines that I think we should not worry more about of the pre-visit. I think that's just to show how ECSA does seem to remind the of the list to start the document and say, team training, logistics, settle, appointing teams, appointing leaders, until we get to the. As I said, this slides of training is one-shop stop of all. Some of the things are not available to the institution. Essential training information. Let's play section 4.1 of each of P. We want to read before completing the 30P. List of programs on offer for the 25-year period. Each program, the department responsible for the program, the person responsible for the program, the curriculum showing the courses or modules, whether compulsory and elective credit, sequence using table 1 of each 30P, major curriculum changes in the progress of plan, degree of commonality of assessment methodology with other programs as well. Run up to this line, as I said, as you can see, this is more to the team assembled. This is more to the ECSA team. When it is compliant, same as this, they arrive at plenary meeting and things like private dinners got nothing to do with the institution, how they do the logistics. So I'll skip this one. Finalizing the timetable, again, as you can see, is more towards the engineering council about the team. Basically, what is compliant. As you can see here, it's also about the until you get to the decision making by the education committee. The team in the first draft, second draft, refer back to the institution, factual correctness, recognition, and all of those. So there's not maybe there's also something that is new now at the engineering council called the consistency review. Completed team reports and institution must be reviewed by a panel of team council reviewers. What happens is that you find something that is deficient in electrical is not deficient in civil. So those independent people will have a look at that to have consistency. And they'll question that, but how can you report the same thing there and there that is not on the same level? So that is done also before the team, the report is being finalized by the institution to give credibility. So there's also a check on the visit that was done by the teams. They get checked by people who are not part of the team to check for consistency. So everything is done correctly to make sure that it's in place. Section 5 is on the criteria and qualification standards and evidence of satisfied criteria. Let's just read. The criteria define characteristics of the quality required to obtain accreditation. Standard statements of the outcome to be demonstrated the level of performance and content baseline requirements. For your case, as you can see, it's going to be EO2PN for the diploma in engineering. Evidence that is going to prove or disapprove something. So this will back up this and then will back up that, as you can see, the reference document that are used. As we said, now this is the core of the accreditation of what the team will be looking at. It's criteria-based evaluation of evidence. Structured questions addresses the criteria. Structured way of expressing findings. A base accreditation visit and assessment cycle, finite number of paths in the cycle expressed type of visits, decision on which path to take, a set of predefined recommendations to each committee, one to be chosen for each program and continued by selecting the period until evaluation. I'm going to play a role of a teacher now, and that you are students as well. So what you see on the board are the 4 criteria that are related to this outcome-based education. Criterion 1 is about the credits, knowledge profile, and coherent design or characteristics of the body of knowledge. Let's remember. Criterion 2, assessment of exit level outcomes or credit action. The reason why we still have this was also used for the BNG. The BNG standard EO2P is still referred to exit level outcomes. It's at the moment with the RPS, Research Policy and Standards Division, and ECSA for the change. They are amending these to graduate attributes. What the graduate must be able to do when they leave the program or when they graduate. Criterion 3, quality of teaching and learning, best practice to aid programs to meet criterion 1 and 2. Criterion 4, resourcing and sustainability of the program, best practice to operate effectively and sustainably. Do you still remember that? We're all looking at that. What is criterion 1? Credits, knowledge profile. Criterion 2 is about graduate attributes. Criterion 3 is about teaching and learning. Criterion 4 is about the resources. Got it? If you master all those 4 criteria, then you know what goes on into the accreditation, because that's where the core of what you have prepared and calculated is all about. As I said, it's criterion based. So now let's unpack and see what does each criterion say, or what are the requirements of each criterion. Let me have all of these on the same slide. Let's have a look. As we said, first we start to say the program purpose include provide education foundation for professional practice. So that must be the purpose of the program that we're having. To elaborate that in the graduate attribute, the outcomes, knowledge profile, and levels, and indicate that program the purpose is achieved. I'll just go a little bit backwards and to show here. You see, I have a graduate attribute for the outcomes, knowledge profile. Now let's see here if you go backwards. Here. In the graduate attribute, this is what the graduate must be able to do. Where do we find that? In criteria 1. So this one, we have to support that. As you can see here, to achieve this, you must have this in place, criteria 1 and 2. You all see that? So it means for the graduate, in the graduate attribute, you will be improving the credits, knowledge profile, correct design, and all of those that are in here. And now here is that how do you teach this to achieve that? Follow. What is it that you need to be able to do your teaching and learning? Here. Okay. Slide. Everything that is on. And then, as you can see here, on criterion 1 from program design, analytic structure of the process that develops the student using the graduate attributes. And criterion 2, as you can see here, assessing the outcomes, the process that will show the graduate achieves the program coming from the graduate attributes. As you can see where it's placed. But equally so with criterion 2 for preparation, teaching and learning, and assessing the outcomes for NPN. The resources that you will require will support you for teaching and learning as per criterion 4. Enablers of the program design, execution, and improvement. Clear? So we've got the jinx of how this puzzle is jigsawed, but it's been packaged.
So this criteria are presented as being internally coherent. They talk to each other. So ideally, using this framework should have been done at the moment of developing the program. Ideally. So ideally, when we're developing the program, we should have had this in mind. But in practice, we very often reverse engineer a little bit, where we look at what we have and we try to fit into that. But that's why eventually a provisional accreditation is interesting, because it allows you now to relook at the whole thing and probably to self-correct in preparation for the regular accreditation.
First problem. Okay, program evaluation principles, objective, the evaluators must answer the question, does the evidence presented demonstrate that the program meets the defined criteria? Now let me hear from you, where is the defined criteria? What is it? ECSA standard, which is E02PN. That's the criteria that we have. The one that we said is the only one that is a national standard at the moment. Others are adaptation, but they are still in a draft format. So then they will have the ECSA standard E02PN and check, use it there, say that's it, that's what you say you are doing. Are you doing it as per the requirement of the criteria? Get it? For regular interim and final visit, okay, this is something else. Documentary evidence takes place in form of self-study report, appendix 1, 3 questions and supporting criteria. So this will be done on site, but before you submit, it's a self-study report with appendix 1 from section 13B. We'll go through the session and we'll show you what is it that is required. As we said, criterion reference evaluation principles. Let's have a look at it. The criteria here, don't confuse, the criteria for the institution is the ECSA standard E02PN diploma, but for the accreditors, they use the E03P as a criteria that guides them how they must do the accreditation. And you can see team evaluation, holistic evaluation, aided by questions in E14P. E14P is what is used by the visit leader to report back. The team, they use E15P to report back. Criteria 1 and 2, as you can see, program specific standard, as you can see, E02PN for the diploma, is what is going to be used to guide them that they must only look at this when they carry out the accreditation. Equally so, from the self-study in E13P, whereby you have used E12P, it also, if you can see, it also leads to the team evaluation. That process we find in E10P and in E15P, depending on which program you take. This is the moderation, consistency review, as you spoke about. These are after the accreditation has been done. So then you can see everything goes to the education committee and the decision will be made. But for now, the institution, E02P will define criteria 1 and 2, which makes sense about the knowledge profile and graduate attributes. But the teaching and learning is not in here, and the resources that you have are not in here, but they are required to be submitted in the topic. Just touch base on. Self-study report, as you can see from 2016, the accredited submission on this program takes form of self-study report. Is a provider's account of how a program meets its accreditation criterion and applicable policy requirements covering all methods of program delivery and all possible pathways to the completion of the degree. As you have just said, of the qualification for the program. A self-study is a reflective document. So that document, when it's submitted, the team receives it beforehand 6 weeks. When they go to the institution, they already have a certain mind of what is it that we are expecting from the institution. So if it is prepared bad, it's a bad reflection of the institution. For instance, information missing from the service department. To the reviewers and ECSA is that this institution does not have service department. Or like talking from Ochieng about the previous history, is that you are offering a half program. You do not have other modules or other credits that you are taking to have. So be very careful. It already gives a mindset up to the evaluators of how the institution looks like, or how the program looks like. So halfway the accreditation is done. When they come on site, it's just to verify and quantify what is in their submission. So you need to cover all of this as per the requirement of the self-study report. The requirements of study report for each program are contained in section 6 of E12P. Those are the requirements, and in E13P you find what is it that is required. Yes, Prof?
This self-study report very often is prepared by the head department. So it's an ordinary academics very often stay away from it, or just give input and do not get involved in making sure that it is prepared correctly. So one tip is just to make sure that this self-study report is circulated among academics and they own that report. So everybody has looked at it. And when it is submitted, it is endorsed by everybody in the department. So that there is no surprise when they, at the moment of the accreditation, they call somebody and then they ask him about his module, and then he's surprised to see that his module is contributing to natural science. And he was never informed that his module was somehow talking to the natural science, or he was not consulted or informed in the calculation of those credits. So somehow, because it's such an important document, and as John was explaining, the document needs to be prepared 6 weeks in advance. So there is sufficient time for the assessor to scrutinize that document. And the first impression that the assessor has got of a particular program comes from this document. So if there is problem in that document, in fact, very often people just come and confirm what they've already seen or the idea that they have developed around the problem. That's why it's such important.
Thanks, Prof. And from the engineering cultural side, we want to set institutions for failure. That's why the sufficient time to submit of 6 weeks is that if there are challenges in the report, the team leader, because they distribute this to the team members, they normally talk about it and give you they consult the institution via X and you say 1, 2, 3 is missing. Not to wait and until to make an embarrassment when they come on site. So beforehand, if you don't give them time, then you're also not doing justice to your site. So if they find something, then they can easily request it before they come on site. Not to embarrass, because you can also say, but I submitted this to you, never said anything, you're only now alerting me here. But that's why they always do that now, that when you submit earlier, you give them time to go through it and to advise you. Remember, this is about the benefit, it's not about pinning down the institution. It's a continuous development, as we spoke about, as it was also reflected on the slide earlier. Okay, so this is showing the difference between what an institution must submit or have a provider from E12P and what a team will use, and why this slide is to check where are they going to meet. Let's first start. Self-study report E12P, section 6.1 program identification and responsibility for the institution. Follow up on the previous visit if you have, you don't have in this case. Criterion 1, program and cost information. So for the institution, when you submit program cost information, it's about this. You get it? So this is how you must prepare that. I'm preparing this for them when they're going to look in this document here. So guidance in 6 and 6.3. 6.4, assessment of attributes and assessment system that I'm doing as an institution or provider, or the assessment of credit attribute in criterion 2. So what I do here must match what is required in criterion 2. As an institution, teaching and learning process, quality of teaching and learning is found in criterion 3. Quality of sustainability factor of the program, it means the resources that I have to sustain the program, that all of these are taken into consideration. Is it clear? Okay. This one I've explained, when I was explaining about that you are not a new institution, you provided with similar something, I was talking more about this one. So as you can see that you can see desktop, initial and simplified on-site and all of those. I was addressing this part. On-site documentation as evidence as per section 7 of E12P, and you see in the red there on the side we've got the criteria. Assessment material, test, exam, and exam papers assignment for criterion 2 to prove which is the graduate attribute in criterion 2. How you achieve them. Mark exam, project assignment script, last year complete cycle for criterion 2, graduate attribute, and criterion 3, which is, you still remember? Criterion 3, teaching and learning. Remember I said I'm the teacher, you're the students. Yeah. This chance I must misuse, it only comes once in my life. Okay, to have professors in front of me and I'm in charge. So I must misuse it, isn't it? Okay, but it is for the good cause, because you're going to use this, and I think to each of these, always, if you can have every Monday morning, not like they must do like when we do maths, 1 times 1 is 1, 1 comes to every day, not to the teacher, but to remind them to know about these 4 criteria is going to assist. So from now on, maybe to know about this, because this is the whole accreditation process. And that's why criterion 3 is there, is to check the system of teaching and learning, as we said. How are they marking the rubrics that they have, and what project are they asking, and so on and so on. Examples of the final year project and the investigator project to check for the credit activity criterion 2. Course materials applied to the students. That is that is the other thing that was never there before. In this case, that material that is being given to the students, the check is to satisfy the teaching and learning. So they are checking on you as the teacher now, the lecturer. What is it? What is the quality that is being given to the students? If it is poor, it means you are giving poor service to the students already. That satisfies criterion 3. The thing of saying, they'll just sit there, compile there, and then make photocopies and pages. Proportion, no. Lecturers who make tests in the morning, they just read by paste the number, they photocopy. They even forget to put the number in there. So that is the reflection of you as the lecturer. I hope it's not happening at me. Do not say wait, happen at Times that students have access to the laboratories, computing resources. As you can see, criterion 4 is about the resources to sustain the program. Access to individual students' academic records for criterion 1 to check those knowledge profiles and credits. And again, for teaching and learning as well, how do you do that? CVs of departmental academic, not service courses of the staff. So in this case, in the new system, it's more about now only in the department. They don't worry about the service departments. So they worry about the core of the lecturers in the program. Documentation on the internal quality assurance processes, sample paper trials, that is again teaching and learning. And this is very critical. One of the questions that is there, how often are your materials revised? Many people are not aware. Where the case comes in, ECSA says, can you bring us your departmental faculty internal quality assurance process? Chapter 7 has that every 3 years. Have you done it? I've been working here for 30 years. That has never happened. Or you are contravening your own policy. It becomes a fine. So what this is saying, know what is contained in your internal assurance processes as well. And what I've seen as well, they say, yeah, but this comes from the faculty, this comes from the quality office. And they say, yeah, we give it to the HODs and faculties every year. They don't comply. Please help sort them out. So it's not for ECSA to sort that, but the finding they'll report on is that you do not even follow your own policies. Documentation of moderation process, including moderators report, quality of teaching and learning, that comes in that, are you following the processes? Now, if you check there, on the left hashtag, it says last 3 full years, on that what you must keep, and this one small of 15 or number of in class, as you can see there. So let's say the last complete. So for the month exam project assignment, the only one is the one of the last completed exam, not for the full. But this one, in your case, it will be everything because when you go for a regular, it has changed like in the past whereby you have to keep the project of the whole cycle. So in this case, as you can see, it's in the last complete year, the passing year. That is just so things have changed anyway. As I said, it's much better now because there's reference to the criteria. What's the correct way? One is criteria, many is...
No, one is criteria.
One is criterion, many is criteria. We always say different. It's like the word stadium and stadium. Yes. What is one? Stadium is one, many stadium. Not stadiums. Or referendum is one, referenda is many, not referendums.
So this because it's somehow regulation, this start giving an idea of what the module 5 need to contain.
Yes.
Because there is always question about what is contained in the module 5.
But it says there from on-site documentation evidence.
So these are the kind of things that need to be there. And I perhaps don't know what's the situation in the case of the TIC with regards to point 9, the moderation. When it comes to external moderation, if you have already, will have already some module that will require some external moderation, because I don't know if you're running already the 3rd year, or if you're running already some exit level outcome module. So probably that for the provisional accreditation, they are not going to look for that, or it will not be available, but certainly for the regular visit, that will have to be present.
Yeah. To add to what Prof said with regards to number 9 here, what the team will be asking is the intent when you get to the third year, the external one. You must have it already by now that how are you going to do that, even if it's not done. It must be somewhere in your document you say, we are going to do external moderation in this manner. And then that when they come for the, after the first cohort, that they will see the proof there. Yes, Prof.
Number 6, access to individual students' academic work.
Yes.
What we imply our mark sheets, or what do you imply there?
Yeah, what this means is the, and I think it's good that you asked that, but we're going to touch on it. Remember, with the graduate attributes, you must prove that all the students achieve the graduate attributes. So there must be somewhere in the system where you have to say, this student should not exceed the system because he or she hasn't achieved graduate attribute 5, but he has achieved all the graduate attributes. The only way to see that is to show proof of the student academic records, for instance, to say test 1, test 2, assignment 1, and all of those, how did they perform? And which graduate attributes were tested in there, in whatever that you are doing. Now, there's also a question that comes in. Remember, if you say, for example, we are only going to test the graduate attributes in the project in the final year. The tests that come, let me hear from you. What is it that you are testing from the student? For the test before the graduate attribute that come in the final year, what is it that you are testing? Let me hear from you. What are you testing? Allow me to go back. What are you testing? You are testing knowledge. What is in your knowledge profile? Natural science, mathematical science, engineering science. You remember? So then you have to test. Even if, so many people make a mistake, say, no, we are not going to ask any test until you get the third year, test the graduate attributes. No. You can test the graduate attribute in a test or in a project, but you must still test the knowledge profile. Are they achieving the knowledge profile of mathematics that they are going to apply in the project in the graduate attribute? That must be. You must be able to show it that. So when this is coming, don't just ask a question for asking a question. You must be able to prove in that question, and they'll ask you, when you ask this question, what were you testing from the student? Oh, I was testing engineering knowledge or engineering science by then. Oh. So this new system is a structured system that makes sense. Because in the past, we see the Prof. will know, you find funny questions that when you go for that quality committee, when you test a normal, you cannot, what are you asking here in this question? It doesn't make sense. And the lecturer said, oh, it's that time when I was feeling tired to sleep, I was copying and pasting from an academic book, no, I remember. It's not even making sense to the lecturer. Now, if you remember in 2011, the Department of Basic Education asked the mathematics teachers of grade 6, which is standard 4, which in our time it was standard 4, to set the mathematics paper nationwide, not knowing why. They set the papers, and after a week, the department said, the director general said, all of those teachers, you're going to answer those exam papers. Boom! They said, no, we don't told them it's for us, what else? Oh, you said the student, the pupils for failure. Because you cannot even answer your own questions. The union came in to stop it, it's unprocedural, what. From what you will know, it was, you didn't want to test that. Those who said the test, just ask them one day to answer. Because if they can't answer, how do you expect students to answer? I think private VUT, you'll hear what your unions will come in or whatever. So, okay, so it means you said the students will fail. Exactly. Because I mean, if you said them, you should be able to answer it. How do you expect students to answer it? Okay, so this is all about this. Is you need to know what is it that you are testing in the system. So there must be an alignment about this. You said knowledge profile, 15 credits of mathematics. How are you proving it? That has been tested. 14 credits of engineering science. Before you go to the graduate attribute, we'll talk about the graduate attribute. It's a totally different peculiar attribute. But that knowledge profile must be tested at each level of the student's development. Okay, done? Satisfied with this part? Okay, great. Self-study table of contents, as you can see, is given in E12P, section 6. Program identification responsibility in section 6.1. Pathways and changes, follow up on previous, in your case you do not apply. Program and course information, the sections are given, assessment of outcomes and assessment system. Teaching and learning process, sustainability factors for the program, student staff resources, impact of the program. And this is, as I say, a suggestion to the providers. But the ECSA documents provide all the information. On the slide is just point form, but if you read the document, you get all the information. This is how it will look like as we just referred to. What is very critical is here. Plans for major change to be implemented during the accreditation cycle, dates, cohorts, and so on. Some of the things as we spoke about, it might not happen now, but in the new program, you plan to bring some other changes for whatever reason that it might be. Like now, everybody's talking about the 4IR, 4th Industrial Revolution. And I've heard that Japan is already on the 5th Industrial Revolution. They haven't started with the 4th Industrial Revolution. But something is wrong in this system. And something is really totally wrong in this system. Like they normally design these other vehicles. You find when it comes here, we go, wow, what's? No, it's just been for 12 years with us in our country. Something's wrong. Anyway. Self-study follow-up, this on the follow-up basis is not applicable to us. The program and cost information is 6.3. I think we just touched on this, just now in more explanatory manner. The consultant deficiencies, if they were one, we all know, but in this case, we don't have this in the program. Provisional accreditation. Now, in the case of a provisional visit, the documentation must follow the guidelines in E12P. That satisfies what should be submitted in E13P. Satisfying criterion 1. Okay, let me just pause there. You still what is in criterion 1? The teacher, students, remember? Criterion 1, credits, knowledge profile, and so on. Okay. Okay. Explain is documented. Present a detailed assessment plan that demonstrates how the program intends to satisfy criterion 2, which is the graduate attributes. To achieve the graduate attribute, you need what is in criterion 1. Okay? Present evidence of teaching and learning effectiveness against some criteria 3. It's been given anyway there that how do you carry out your teaching and learning. Present evidence of adequate resourcing and sustainability against some criteria 4, which is how are you going to sustain the program. Demonstrate the effectiveness of measures taken to address concerns raised during the initial evaluation. So this initial evaluation to you do not apply. It will be to that institution that is newly established that never offered the similar program. So for you, because you offer a similar program, this does not apply to you. Let's look at criterion 1, credits, knowledge profile, and coherent design. The program must be planned and executed to hand. Now these are the questions that the assessors will have and ask the institution. So it must satisfy it. They will say, is the purpose including providing educational foundation for practice in stated category? Is it there in criterion 1? I mean, in the program, as is stated in criterion 1, total credits specified in the relevant standard. A knowledge profile defined in the relevant standard. A coherent core appropriate to the purpose of the program defined in the relevant standard. Specialist studies required in the relevant standard. A designation or qualifier consistent with the program's purpose and engineering science content. Explicit rules of combination and progression. Explicit horizontal and vertical articulation options. So those are the questions that the assessors will pose to you as the institution. So for now, you must be able to answer this. Let's just have a look at, as an example of what I'm talking about when we talk of the knowledge area definitions. And this you can find in E03P, Appendix 2. Natural science, formerly basic sciences. Physics, including mechanics, chemistry, earth science, and the biological science, with focus on understanding the physical world as applicable to engineering context. Complementary studies covers those disciplines outside of engineering sciences, like history of valve and so on and so on. Natural science and mechanics, which are relevant to the practice of engineering, but not limited to engineering, economics, management, the impact of technology on society, effective communication and the humanities, social sciences, or other areas that support the understanding of the world in which engineering is practiced. So we need the students or the graduates need to know how is this engineering practiced in the real world? How does it fit in the hence we've got what we call the complementary studies. As you see, it's part of the knowledge profile. Computing and information technology, backling in the technology program, that is still seen as a knowledge area. In the BH program or BSc program, that is seen as a tool. It's not seen as a knowledge area. Okay? It encompasses the use of computers, networking, and software to support engineering activity, and as an engineering activity in itself is appropriately disciplined. So simply what I say, the use of software in the program. Engineering design and synthesis is a systematic process of conceiving and developing materials, component systems, and process to serve full-purpose design, may be procedural, creative, or open-ended, and because application of engineering science, working under constraints and taking into account economic, health and safety, social and environmental factors, social practice, and applicable laws. Okay, science includes mathematical and physical science, and where applicable in other natural sciences by extended knowledge, and develop models and methods in order to lead engineering application to solve engineering problems. Maths, an umbrella term comprising the techniques of mathematics, numerical analysis, statistics, and aspects of computer science cast in appropriate mathematical formalization. So this is also in O3P Appendix 2. So what this is saying, when in that knowledge profile, whatever that you're asking, the team will be also looking at is this satisfying what has been given here. Now, Prof said something very profound. We say, basically, this should have been done at the curriculum development stage. And hence, this is done at 50% credit. If it's not done, it should be corrected before the first cohort is posted. Okay. So, this is what we've been talking about. Let's have a look at it. We are, in this case for you, looking at here, as you can see, knowledge area and the credits. Mathematical science, minimum 35. Natural science 28, engineering science 126, engineering design. The reason why is the engineering science so high? Because
Everything is about engineering.
Because it's an engineering program. So in a law program, you'll find more something that is more applicable today, or a management program. So this is an engineering program, that's why the credits are high there. Engineering design, computing and IT, that's why you can see that it's not there in the BN because they removed it and said it's a 2. Complementary studies, minimum 40. Now, what is very interesting is this, for redistribution and what integrated learning consistency. So it means this, you can add to this and compound them up, but these are the minimums. So you've got 78 credits that you can distribute inside. So what a team will be looking at, it should not be less than 35 for mathematical sciences. If it's less than 35, then you're not complying with what the requirement is in the program. It can be 45, taking 10 from the 78. So these are for the redistribution among those. So anything can be more here. They may let be when they can redistribute the credits along, because they must all have 760 credits. The core thing of the team will be prove to the team how do you achieve the 35 credits in mathematics. Yes, sir.
Just ask, for example, if you have mathematics 1 and mathematics 2 as part of the curriculum, and it contributes towards the 35 credits, 35 credits of mathematics. But some of those, you also have, for instance, in engineering sciences, calculations of students who do statistical work under engineering design. Would that also count as mathematical sciences, which is the education?
It's up to the institution. Very good that you asked that. Remember when we spoke the last time about the physics? That is not the physics, but it's distributed somewhere. If you prove it that way, that for us, and you comply with these requirements here of what mathematical science is there, that you say in maths, the pure maths, we do not have, for instance, like you said, statistics. But statistics is in engineering design. So there is coding there as well. No problem.
So, as it says, up to the institution, but there is a couple of practical considerations, at least that I see coming very often. So you can have other modules that claim some credit toward, let's say, mathematics. The trick is that it needs to be new. It needs to be something that they haven't done before. And it needs to be assessed. So if you have a subject at the final year that claim mathematics, you need to show that it's something new, it's not a repetition of derivation or something like they've done in the first year, and at that level, somehow they need to have assessed it. They need to have put it in a test or whatever. Then it's claimable towards it.
And I think the good example that you used was statistics. You can see it's on its own here. So if you say it's not done in mathematics pure, but as an application in the engineering design, it's something new that they've never done, then it qualifies. So what this brings about is that institutions have to be very creative and smart in packaging this. And this is much better because you've got the information in front of you. Unlike the previous time whereby, and I can still remember, we did not know what we were doing. Things were plugged there, and just some things there, like those ones, was like that. In this case, we've got a guideline or a guidance of saying how to package that and prove it. So another way you have, it's much easier to have whereby you say, for instance, some of these are not done there, but are done there is new, and you have to prove it that in the previous one. So the likelihood will be that the maths service subject lecturer must say, in maths in here, I'm covering one piece, but where are these others? Or the department that is responsible will show distributed them somewhere there, and over and above there, prove it. Don't, because remember, it's upon the institution to convince the team that you are doing that and you have assessed it. You say, no, on the part of this question 5 is about statistics. You can see we are achieving it. Clear to everyone? Thank you. Yeah. You say and use. Have you end up, sir?
No.
You'll come after him. I'm just making sure.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll come after him and use. Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm trying to find out if it is a prescription that we need a minimum of 13 credits for the well.
Yes. All of these are minimum.
Okay.
You can go higher, but all of these are minimum.
So when we have 30 credits for well, it's acceptable.
Yeah, these are minimum. Yeah.
These are exact distribution knowledge areas.
Yes.
Do you have the one for the framework from the SHQF?
You mean for the redistribution?
Yeah, they don't have. We only have the credit.
Yeah, you can you can say maybe 36, maybe 20. It's not to distribute it equally, no. Because the minimums are.
But you can see some discrepancy. If the HQF sub framework it says 360, ECSA will say no. We will have our minimum to be 420. So is there such
So the 420 is on the BH
only for BMTech, I know.
The diploma, the minimum
is 360 for BMTech.
You can go. You see, all of these are minimum.
Yeah, I know.
But the challenge that will come, other people, like especially in the BH, you see 560 credits. They used to say some institutions will have 700 credits. But what is the program time? Say 4 years. You say no, let's prove it. Because this is based on a 4-year program. Okay, let's prove it. So institutions fail to prove how they achieve the extra 200. It's like an example of the dean is asking you to submit the workload. And you say, hey, I'm going to impress him. Put all these high hours. You say, the HOD or the dean looks at this and says, you spend 120 hours per week at work. And he comes 5 o'clock in the morning and says, but you are not there. The way this is, you are here permanently. Before, for getting that minimum is 40 hours per week. You cannot go more than 40 hours. But you impress is 120. You say, but I was here 3 o'clock as a dean to check that we are working. You are not this. Say, yeah, but the way it is, you're supposed to be a permanent. So what does it say? Do not try to impress by loading this, that hey, our diploma, we do content work. It's 450. You have to prove. You still do it in 3 years? No ways. You cannot be. So it means your students are permanently in class. But certain days they're not inside. But the way you submit it means they're here every day. So logic must also dictate into the system. Before. Okay. I noticed you say it was simpler than come to you.
This credit for redistribution.
Yes.
There is also credit allocated for complementary studies.
Yes.
Now, is there a constraint of how the redistribution is done and what goes into?
I think first let's start at what are complementary studies. Follow. All of these communication, humanity, social science, and all of those that add to the program to show the student how engineering is done in the real world. There's no restriction there. And why it's done like this is not to restrict the institution, it's to give the institution that innovation if you want to package it. Other institutions will lean more towards in their diploma towards marine engineering or municipal engineering, and they load this way that is to give you that leeway, because they don't want to dictate to you that do this, but they give you that leeway of saying we've got something that is free for you to use. So if some say, we're going to keep it standard, just this to this price, no problem.
My clarification is, if we are redistributing and we choose to load complementary studies to maybe 35,
yes. It's not a problem.
or this 78, must it go, for instance, only to engineering?
No. Like I was asking about, there's no criteria for the distribution.
Okay.
Yeah, you've got something to play around. Up to you. How you do? Yeah. It's to avoid restricting the institution. You know, it's to bring that innovation from the institution.
And I don't think the redistribution is done as we first meet the minimum credit required on the major knowledge area, and then we start dishing out some additional credit we want to find. I think it doesn't come that way. So it's naturally that certain module require a little bit more time, because there is an assignment, and then eventually, to allow for that flexibility, then there is this redistribution provided for.
The idea that EM has much more room for redistribution means what?
It means it's a 4-year program, it's a 3-year program.
The EM has 112.
It says, yes, but because check the funnel, check here. Let's compare it. Check the engineering side 140, 126. For the 235.
No, those distributions allowance.
Yeah, but it's because of, remember, they are, political correctness, they are proportionally to the length of the content of the program. Yeah.
I just wanted to check with you. Probably it sounds not very correct, but I was looking at the gradings for wheel, and I'm tempted to ask, in the instance where a program has been registered with CAG for, say, 40 credits per week, that is what's appearing in the document, and then there happened to be an instance of accreditation visit, and practically we find that maybe the acquired credit is 35. If there can be such an odd case, how do you proceed to make the conclusion on the will or credits due to will? Is my question understood? I can repeat. I'm saying.
It is redistributed. That value can be added to any one of them.
Can be added to any one of them. And these numbers are obtained from first principle. So there is a way of getting to the number.
Okay.
So it's not an arbitrary number. So you're gonna say, they spend so much a week in industry, and each day they spend so many hours, and then you work out from those principles to the final credit value. So it's not a thumb sack value. Perhaps when we get there, because it's going to spend a lot of time explaining how we get to those credits. So here they are given as guidelines. They might appear abstract, but they are obtained from first principles, from the number of hours that the students spend on a particular knowledge.
But maybe in principle, you are answering my question, but I wish to know a little bit more if, for instance, there are documented credits, right? Documented in the registered program. And now it happens that in the evidence that we can provide, we acquired a student, probably acquired 35, but on the document it shows maybe
45, the document that appears to have been registered for the program, how do you proceed to make a decision? Is that scenario possible?
So instead of having 30, you have 35.
Yeah, I'm saying that suppose, because there is one document that we have registered a program. This program, the exiting student should have 45. Say that the document states that. And now, in the event of a visit, you find that the student acquired 35 credits, and your minimum is that. How do you proceed to make a decision?
I think the assessors will look at the number of hours that are actually spent on this particular knowledge. So that's the one that will determine the number to consider. So you might have designed initially and say, okay, we put 30. But in practice, they spend a little bit more time, and then you can prove that it has come to 35, that's the one that they're going to look at. If I understand very well what you are trying to say.
I think, Prof, his question is three-tiered.
Yeah.
Okay. The first tier says the minimum is 30.
For ECSA.
For ECSA is 30.
Yeah.
Now, when submitting, they've done a redistribution and added another 10 to it. So what they were submitting for accreditation, for registration, all that was 40 now. But in the student attempting that section of the world, in the audit, it comes out that even in counting the hours, the student now only meets 35 instead of the 40. But then the minimum prescribed is 30. Now, does X now penalize the institution, or does it still, because the student has already met the minimum?
Yeah, there will not be a penalty.
Thank you.
What happens very often is that these numbers will be recalculated with on site.
Yes, that was discussed.
Yeah, so it will be recalculated and the actual numbers taken into account.
It's like on the road when you drive. Minimum speed limit 60. It means I must not go more than 60. I drive 40, should I be penalized? No, I still may drive more than 60. Because you still meet the minimum 40 and 30. But you promise 40, but you still meet 30. As I said. And just another thing that is very, you must be very careful about. The document that you submit, as Prof said, have knowledge of it. Because very often you find what has been submitted is not what the department is having. Because normally submitted by the quality department in the faculty. You submit a draft to them that you forget, and you keep on, you change the department, they still submitted that one that you submitted. They arrive here to tell two different words. So make sure that what is submitted is what you have and what you own as a department, so that you can be able to answer. But simply to make life easy, I think probably your only assistant not having a question.
No.
Okay. Do you have a question, sir? Or it's fine.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
But I think where the discussion is going these days is trying to meet the minimum requirement is a bit dangerous. So try to see if we can have a buffer, because the reality is that we're losing time very often with everything that is happening on our campuses, the protests, all these things. So technically, there's few institutions that are actually having the 14 or the 15 weeks that were initially planned for teaching. So very often when it comes that you actually just meeting the requirement, it invites scrutiny. So the assessors then come and start looking actually if these numbers are correct or they've just been invented. So and that's why this redistribution is nice, because it allows you a little bit of a buffer and some knowledge. The one with the complementary studies, I would have hoped that we did an exercise of using the previous national diploma and BTech, and try in preparation to this outcome base, try to use this accreditation framework and see if our previous national diplomas were meeting the requirements. And we could see that the national diploma, as they were designed initially, were short when it comes to complementary study and a lot of engineering design. So very often there is a problem. So if the program, the current program, has been just a simple amalgamation of the previous national diploma, it is, you might have problem with some knowledge areas. And generally you just barely meet them and eventually invite scrutiny, then they start looking at the various modules that are claiming for that particular knowledge.
Thanks, Paul. And as we said when we started, that hygiene of totally removing the national diploma, NATED and BTEC, this is a totally new program. You start it from fresh as per the requirement that are given. And many people made a mistake of taking the previous one, trying to slot it into here. And that's why you have a problem, as Prof said, in there. You find that on here, this one and this one, they were not there in the previous one. Because only one design that was done. If you ask now, the complementary studies were only done up to a certain level, and it ended there. There's never been computer studies 2, there's only one computer skills, it was less there. You see, so be careful. If you did that, I hope you did not do that. It's not prepared anyway. Knowledge-based analysis, establish the notional hours of for each course or module, contact, lecturers, tutorials, practicals, other non-contact assignments and self-study, examine new actual exam-related hours. You see how important this is in the calculation. All multipliers must be justified. To talk about that. Calculate each course credit using the ECSA formula. Do not use the credits allocated by the university's method. Some allocate courses credits to the knowledge area, say using fractions of total, and up credits in each knowledge area. Include first time assessment area, exclude preparatory remedial courses and revision. And that's where okay, I'll get it. Sorry, the next one. Oh, yeah. What should the team do when the following are incurred before or during the visit? The name of the program has been changed since the last visit from to whatever. A. The ECSA table 6-1 submission using the university's own accredited in their own accredited system. What this means is you don't use the ECSA calculation. We had a recent accreditation visit to one university that other week. Prof was the deputy visit leader, whereby the credit was a problem. We were calculated incorrectly. They had to be recalculated when we were on site. Now it's another work for the institution. So it's very important to stick to the rules and make sure that as the HOD or as the faculty manager or as the dean, that things are done correctly. Because sometimes time is not enough. The team has to leave, take a snapshot, and they'll report that information was missing or it was not done correctly. As you all know, the first principle, like Prof said, calculation, 1 credit is 10 notional hours based on average student, looking at the total actual time spent, right? So before it means 360. So for the student to achieve the diploma must spend 3,600 hours full time on the program to achieve. So that means. Okay, as you can see, the total actual time contact, lectures, tutorials, practicals, other, assignment or non-contact time, assessment, test, exams, oral time. Multiplus account for preparation and assessment assimilation by students associated with the actual contact time. So you see in the calculation, the ECSA credit calculation formula, that multipliers is how many hours or how much time is required for the student to prepare for a certain module before coming to class. And you need to just describe it. Now other institutions where we pass through as well on this, minimal is more, for one, you see for instance, they need 1 hour to prepare. This is based on an average time. Some will say, no, for this they need 5 hours. Now let's calculate back. Wakes up, they have to arrive at school in the morning at 8, or maybe they woke up, it means they must wake up 2 o'clock in the morning, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 before they come to prepare for the subject. We calculate this, but the student is never sleeping because people are trying to impress with the multipliers. They have to make sense. You need 1 hour, maybe 2 hours to prepared before, an average student. Some go overboard, is up to them, but they need to be justified. And the proof will come when you do the calculation. Let's take, for example, this scenario. Let's use maths at first level. And to get to the credits, which is going to be divided by 10, which is 88 credits. Lectures that are spent there, as you can see here from the calculation formula that is there, this is easy to plug into Excel, divided by 10, the 10 notional hours, 1 credit, and say lectures that is spent there, 16. Now remember, this is over the total period of the semester, whereby they have contact with the subject, and the multiplier is 2 hours. So, and for the tutorials, 1.5, half 30, there are no practicals in mathematics, there's nothing other. And again, if you check the assessment, they have 6 hours, what immediately for the examination. And then, do the calculation. This is coming from here when you do the calculation here, and it yields. Now let's have a look at signals at that level. Lecture 39, multiply 2, tutorials, practicals they have as well, prepared before coming to go to the laboratory. There's no other. Assignments, 20 hours a day to spend, and 5 hours for the exam, and calculated divided by 10 is going to be 12.3 credits. So you get an idea now of how to calculate the credits. Now you can go back and prove those minimum 14 hours, because that's what the team is going to ask you, that you must have something like this ready, so that you can just plug in and calculate. Say, as I said when you started, how do you get to the 15 credits for mathematics or mathematical sciences? You need to be able to prove and show that this is the multiplier, this is how much time they spend. And over and above, you'll ask, can we see the timetable to prove that they spend so much time in lectures? So they have to be proved. Because you can inflate it, you need to be proved that you want to see the university approved timetable that you really spend so much time. This problem?
We're talking about an average student.
Yes.
Now, suppose we got programs that are basically extended.
Yeah. That as well, you'll have to do it separate and you'll have to justify it. For instance, you say, our things are inflated because we've got this extra year as a preparatory extended. There's nothing wrong with it. This is based on an ideal situation. If you've got those that are average students. All over the world, everything is based on ideal. That is ideal. And which we know is not practically possible as such. For everything that you have problem, you just need to have evidence and proof why is that happening. Like I know at UJ, in BH Tech, it's not 3 years, 4 years, they've got an extended in civil engineering. So they've got 1 year preparing for those students who don't enter directly to BH Tech because they don't have a higher certificate or a diploma. So they extended, and there's a proof to that. So what we look at then, we start looking at the first year when the real BH Tech, we exclude those ones. But when they calculate them, we look more than 420. They add another 120 because of those preparations. There's nothing wrong with it.
So those multipliers will have to be justified.
Yes.
Everybody, each institution can decide on the multipliers. And even the universities and the programs that have been using this outcome-based accreditation are still battling with the multipliers because they are not always justifiable. And a place to find out if they are correct is during the triangulation with the student. The student will tell you exactly, in this subject, I don't have to prepare. I come in class and there's nothing to prepare. In this subject, I spend 3 days or 4 days to prepare for an exam of 3 hours. So it starts giving you a little bit an idea whether these multipliers are correct or not. That's one thing that I want to add. The other thing is to have a little bit of a consistent methodology in the calculation and in the multiplier. I suspect that a subject like mathematics that is taken by all the program will expect to see the same type of multiplier and the same credit. So you cannot have mathematics who count 20 credits in one program, but they're sitting with the same student as civil or chemical and metallurgy, they're sitting in the same mathematics. And the same mathematics is having 3 or 4 different credit value depending on the program. So somehow, some sort of consolidation and consultation between programs need to happen before the thing. And those kind of discrepancies are easily identifiable because the assessor will sit the day prior to the visit and actually share some of those credit value and some of those multipliers to see if there is discrepancy between them. The final one is eventually to have consistency between the report that is submitted, which is used by the assessor, and the individual module framework or study guide. You cannot have the report talking about another credit and the study guide having another value. So clearly, one of them is wrong.
Listen, thanks, bro. I'm just trying to find out if this is actually something to be designed as maybe a faculty standard. We should be having kind of a standard for the multiplier. The reason I'm asking, I mean,
we will not know what the institution are using.
Exactly, because I mean, we happen to share subject, for example, same students from generics, yes, coming from different departments, and they happen to write the same subject, but they have different credits depending to what departments they are. So, don't you think that would be an inconsistency with?
Yeah, but you see, that is not for, you see, the other thing with the engineering council cannot prescribe on how you must do it. For them, they'll come justify. If you want to put in a policy, departmental faculty, it's up to the institution. I think that question is more directed to Prof. Ndeke.
No. You have these 2 students sitting in the same class, the same hours.
Yes.
And in their own prescription, they have more credit than chemical engineering.
No, but what we are saying, you see, that's why it's up to the institution.
I just wanted to clarify it.
Yeah, but the engineering council cannot prescribe why, but you'll have to prove why is that different if they're in the same class.
No, okay, if I put it to you, give me an answer.
No, but what is asking is that should it be a faculty policy that we cannot enter into that.
So what Jones is avoiding is to prescribe a way of doing it.
Yes. Yes.
But to just pinpoint that some discrepancy can come,
yes,
which will be eventually difficult to justify.
Yeah, but it's about
how you want to do it. That.
But is it acceptable?
What is acceptable?
No, you know, there is a lot of explanation that come very often.
Thanks.
Okay, I've been told that lunch is ready, but I just want to check. If you check here, this is it was mathematics and a subject that was both practicals and assignment and exam. Now there's this other one. When we spoke about the one that we want to take it out to the industry, the design. Let's look at the design. There are no lectures for design that the students have to attend, but it's tutorials that to prepare them, and there are no practicals. There's nothing other. It's only assignment. There's no exam. As I said, sometimes you find that you are finding it's not 360, it's 355. You say, damn, what do I do? Excel will not be able to pick up this. I put in the assessment 5 hours to make it big. They will pick that up. They'll say, what exam is there in the design? Because they only submit the design as in the form of that assignment. So this is just to show you if you can have a framework, and that's what it's going to come to be able to prove that where is your multiplier, so you can see that, and what is doing the lectures, tutorials, practical, and all of those. And this will have to be proven from the timetable. So that timetable that you had from the it had to be produced at that stage to prove that in a semester or in a year course, this is how much time that the students attend class. Yes, sir. And maybe that there's a new person asking questions. I think when we come back from lunch, I'm going to zoom this side to ask questions.
Right, can you just talk a bit more about the other column?
Yes. It's anything that you might have. That's why you're giving a leeway like the redistribution. Any other thing that you might have. You see, ideally, to say you have lectures, you have tutorials, you have practicals. You might have other something as well.
So your teaching methodology could include things that have got nothing to do with lecturing on the practical, visit to industry, looking at videos and all other teaching methods that you could include. But it will be interesting, and you certainly lead the way in doing this for the will, because the will need to be also done according to this, and to show us or to show what are the various components, and if there is multiplier that you have used to be able to justify them. Again, that's something that only you will know what's up. Because here it's copied a little bit with the model of the edge, and they don't have will. And here it's national diploma, we will be there, and for will we'll have to calculate also an actual credit rate.
What we said about this is that when we prepared the slides and the program, we said because not all institutions at the technology level are doing well. Let's wait until the cycle is complete and learn from how you do it and prepare something. Because others are in existence, like went to UJ, they do not have. Went to DUT, they do not have. So the DUT, Peter Maritzburg campus, they had 280 credit diploma. But it's not having will. So it's causing a problem as well. But now you are the first guinea pig that we're going to use in our next presentation. Your will, after the first cohort has gone through, to say, how does DUT do? If there's another one doing, then we'll also do a benchmark and say, then the will can be calculated as such. Because these are coming from the real subjects that have been done in the past from the PhD program. Okay. There was a say, I've not noted to.
I just want to ask about those multipliers. Where did they come from?
As I said, it's the multiplier. You must decide and say, what will an average? How much time will an average student need to prepare for your subject?
I hear that.
Yeah.
But my exit comes along, medium quarters and right. What are your multipliers?
Yeah. Okay. Let's go back. It's easy. If you work, in which field are you? In which field? Mechanical. It's easy. In engineering, it's easy. Do a calculation for the credits to prove that what you proved, like 14 credits for engineering design. Work it backwards without the multipliers. If you pump it up with 5 or 10, it will give an unreasonable credit at the end. That's how you work it backwards. See, first is best engineering. That is going to make sense. You already have what is needed minimum. Plug it in the equation. The lecture time, the practical tutorials. What is missing in there? You already have equal to. It's the credits that are there. In this, what is missing? Multiply, solve for multiply. It will give you an average of what multiply is.
What is the multiplier?
The multiply is that what the student needs to prepare before coming to class. How much time will they need to prepare for the subject? How much will they need to prepare for the exam?
Okay, so
just show me in that way which multiplier are we talking about.
The multiplier is here. You see here in the calculation. The M is the multiplier. So the question that you're asking, I'm being scared now because accreditation is in June. How did you do your calculation when you first started? How did you get to this? I'm worried. How did you get to this? That's the problem. So you must be able to prove it.
And I'll tell you why.
There's a formula with
I was on the ECSA standards committee a number of years ago. That formula was made up. I was present.
Yes.
That formula was made up. Stuff has gone missing in that formula in the meantime. And at that time, that thing was put forward as a guideline. It's not gospel.
Yeah, but at the moment,
and now you're using it as the gospel, according to ECSA. At some stage along the line, it changed. And when it changed, ECSA never informed the people who were using the standard that this now is the gospel according to credits. But we have to use that in the design of the curriculum.
Yeah, but
and that's why those credits came out of the air based on past experience. And everybody here did it. Come on, be honest. You suck those credits out of the air. This is a serious fuck up. That's where we are at this stage, as far as these credit issues are concerned, because this calculation was not factored in to this design process right at the beginning. You guys, typically of ECSA, arrive at the last minute with a new playing field. This is what's happening here. We're the guinea pigs, all right? You're going to learn that this is a mess. You've probably already experienced it with previous institutions, that the whole credit thing is upon shaky ground.
Yeah, but as I say, the BNG programs and universities that offer BNG, it's deliberate. They do this every time and every day. So eventually, for us who come from technology programs, there is a learning curve. And as you are discovering that it's not about thumb sucking, it's about first principle. That's the reason why we are having this training. And the first order of the day, when the assessor comes, will actually be to ask the head of department to show a spreadsheet where he has derived these numbers. So perhaps it will be suggested or advised that this be done, because that will be the first thing. The first thing, I think the first sentence will be, where is the spreadsheet? And let's see from the spreadsheet how you got to these numbers. And these numbers are obtained through applying that formula. You're right, the formula has gone through a lot of iteration, a lot of, in my opinion, improvement. There is element and component that were not there. There seems to be some sort of consensus now that the formula has been stabilized and is usable once someone is trained and know what are the elements to put in.
Okay, so can I just interrupt? You're admitting that the formula that was in the initial document that we had to use for curriculation purposes is no longer the same.
Yeah, so at the beginning...
This is a new thing that's been thrown
No, it's not. That's why the test that you're going to fail when ECSA comes, let's read this. Calculate each cost credit using the ECSA formula, or else use your own formula. It cannot be a thumbs up. The proof will come. Over if you did not use ECSA, like where we were the other week, was that they used their own. And it was justifiable why they used their own. They said, okay, do us a favor and recalculate using ECSA formula. And they did that because they've already calculated before by using theirs. But without using, I mean, numbers don't lie. You cannot think a number like that. And coming back even to here, go back here. These numbers were calculated. It's not just, it was just said we have 35 credits in diploma in engineering. It took that calculation to say, why is it that necessarily we get for the diploma, why is it different from the others as well? So the test that you fail is that over and above this, what did you use else? Then you must prove that, at least if you say you use your own, there's some, excuse me, before there was a gentleman at the back. Yes.
Some sort of clarity when we were deciding on the credits, we use our own formula.
Thank you.
What we considered was the total hours.
Yes.
Laboratory self-study assessment. We were calculating the hours associated with it. And when we added the hours,
thank you very much. So there's a form of justification. How did you arrive at the credit? And at least that one shows that you followed a certain way of your own policy of conduct. Because it cannot be a thumbs up here. Because the question will be, if you thumbs up 14, why not 100? Why 14? Then you must justify why 14. And why not a million? Why 12? Then you are opening up yourself extra and extra. Even if it is wrong, as long as you prove that at least you use something to calculate. And I like what you said, I like the statement that you used. In that statement, we used our formula to calculate. And that's what we were saying, calculation, not thumbs up, calculation. Is that what you wanted to answer?
No, what I wanted to answer, this formula you have here, is it different from the initial ECSA document?
Which initial documents? See, people, this is, as I said, when we started, I said, the accreditation system is evidence-based. when you say previous, you must show that previous one is the one I used. If you don't say that, they'll say, okay, for us, we have this. What is that previous that we have so that we can check? Then you must be able to produce it. If you don't produce it, it's null and void. Yes. So you need to have that one as evidence to say, for us, we use this one and not this one. Then it's a different ballgame.
Just to help some of the others, just as Thomas Dungeon said, we use things like time and lectures, practicals, first, etc., exponential things from self-study, which we all have to include. Okay? And that is exactly what the multiplier is. The multiplier brings in a factor which includes self-study.
Yes, that's all about it.
No column for self-study.
Yes.
That's what it's about.
Yeah.
It's how much time they spend in preparation for exams and for lectures and tutorials, etc.
Yes.
So I think this has been easy for us to
then problem solved.
So we went to one university recently that did the same. So they included the self-study required for each of these components as a particular column. And then didn't do the multiply. But it was easy to then rework it out with this particular
formula. Because they had a framework. So if you don't have a framework, it means you have to start from afresh. Then you don't know where to start. But by doing that, they used their own. It was easy to convert to this. And one-in-one, it was not so much different from what it was, but it could not prove theirs were different, the credits, the outcome, and what actually it was or what it's supposed to be as a minimum. It's all about it. You need to prove it as an institution before, and you still have time now to recalculate using this and see what comes. And also present that what you did using your own. And it's also much better when you show that for us we use this, for now we have to calculate using this one. This is where it comes. And it's just but if you don't have any base where that is coming from, it becomes a challenge. People, I don't want to get too much into the lunchtime, but I wanted to touch base on this before I go into this, just to show you something. But maybe let me leave this here because we are going to need it when we get to the next one. Okay. So they did not what is it, man? For how long are we going to go for? Like 30 minutes? 1 hour.